Fanfiction is a concept that is generally regarded amongst the internet as cringe, weird, and generally just not a fantastic thing. And sure, it might seem that way. There's plenty of wacky self-inserts rife with juvenile sexual references. However, as with anything, taking a deeper dive into fanfiction can bring a lot of really well-written stories, tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to quite literally millions of words long. In fact, the longest piece of fanfiction, and also one of the longest pieces of literature, is a Super Smash Bros. Story with over 4 million words across 221 chapters. However, I'm not here to talk about Super Smash Bros. I'm here to talk about Percy Jackson and the Olympians. You know, that one young adult series where a kid from New York is the son of Poseidon? Yeah, that. The realm of Percy Jackson fanfiction is a very wide and diverse one. You've got soulmate stories where people are destined from the birth to be with this one person, angsty, heartbreaking stories where one person dies and the other one has to deal with all that depression, and alternate tellings of the main canon. One such alternate story is Imperator Vos Bellicosum, which roughly translates to Emperor Vessel of War, written by CombatTombat. CombatTombat is an author on fanfiction.net who has gained a reputation for writing stories about Roman history, war, and other related topics. All of his stories feature Percy Jackson as an unstoppable force of nature, a literal war machine who can carve through his foes as easily as a scythe does through wheat. The Imperator story in particular features Percy, who isn't a Greek son of Poseidon, but a Roman son of Neptune, who rises through the ranks of the last remaining Roman legion, the 12th Legion Fulminata, to become the newest Emperor of Rome. But that's enough spoilers. Here is my review for Imperator Vos Bellicosum. Imperator was published on September 30th, 2018, with 27 chapters and 74,837 words. It's no light reading. It opens with the POV of Jason Grace, a canonical Roman son of Jupiter, the king of the gods, where we're introduced to Percy. Both are around the same age, around 11 or 12. Tombat mentions in an author's note at the end that Percy's backstory is roughly the same as the main canon. His father was abusive and generally an unpleasant person. According to Tombat in the author's note, Neptune, Percy's father in this story, brings him to Lupa, the mother wolf of Rome, who according to legend rescued and raised Romulus and Remus, the former of whom founded Rome itself. In the original series, Lupa takes in potential Roman recruits and trains them vigorously. If they are weak, they die. If they are strong, they then join the Legion, which is the same as in this story. The first chapter features a duel between Percy and Jason. Despite both of them being the sons of the two most powerful gods in the Roman pantheon, the duel is one of swordplay, which Percy opens with suplexing Jason. Their sword blows are described by Tombat as strong enough to make sparks fly, and were they made of any other metal, they would have been dented by the impact. Both their swords are made of imperial gold, a magical metal Rick Riordan devised for the series which can kill monsters and demigods, but not mortals. Percy's sword is also said to contain adamantine, which in Tombat's story can kill mortals, making Percy's sword the only weapon in the story that can kill mortals, demigods, and monsters. The first chapter is, as any first chapter goes, an introduction to the setting and characters. The rest of the story details Percy's rise to power, tracking along the same timeline as the original Percy Jackson series, which is spread across 4 years in the universe. He goes from a freshly inducted legionnaire to a centurion, to praetor, and finally emperor. The story ends right where the Heroes of Olympus series begins, with Jason's disappearance and abduction by the Queen of the Gods Hera, or Juno, in the Roman pantheon. This is where the sequel, Filii Deorum, which translates to Son or Sons of the Gods, picks up. The sequel is currently on hiatus, however, due to Tombat beginning other projects. My thoughts were that it was exceptionally well written. Most stories that I've read about a Roman Percy are usually set along the Heroes of Olympus timeline, the sequel series to Percy Jackson and the Olympians, where Percy is a Roman and Jason is a Greek, and they then switch places, and the story basically just happens along how Heroes of Olympus happened. Percy would fall in love with Annabeth Chase, a daughter of Athena, the wisdom goddess, who is also a rival of Poseidon's, and they had sort of a rivals to eventual lovers type thing. Tombat, however, has Percy falling in love with Reina Ramirez Arellano, a daughter of Bellona, the Roman war goddess. Imperator also heavily goes into more of the imperial Roman military structure, which was widely considered to be one of the best militaries of classical history. There's many uses of older and more nuanced Roman titles, especially as Percy becomes emperor. Rick Riordan didn't really use these titles, which makes sense because the Romans' introduction was very, very brief in Heroes of Olympus. They were given one book for them to really develop themselves before the main plot of the series really kicked into action. The story is a much deeper dive into what a modern Roman legion camp would look like, along with the accompanying city next to the camp and all the social aspects that would go along with that, including a brief arc where two rival political parties pop up in the Roman Senate, and Percy has to deal with the fallout from that. I would highly recommend this story, especially because I'm a history nerd. There's quite a few battle scenes where the Roman legion acts as one unified weapon of war. Tombat's writing makes you visualize their movements, how the 5 cohorts of the Legion march across the battlefield, with their golden spears chewing through the ranks of foul monsters. And when Percy has the opportunity to let his power rip, that's something I wish I could witness in a movie theater. In the original books, and in a lot of the fanfiction stories too, Percy is powerful, but there's a clear message that he's not as powerful as he could be, as if he's holding back. Sure, in the books he makes Mount St. Helens explode or summons a small hurricane when dueling against a Titan, but those are small instances that even show how his powers can mess with other people. In Imperator, however, as I mentioned earlier, Percy is an unstoppable force of nature who will stop at nothing to ensure that all the enemies of Rome fall. Imperator vs. Bellicosum is one of my favorite Percy Jackson fanfiction stories, along with its sequel. Tombat has many more stories that he's published, including one where Percy is the first demigod ever to exist, a feared warrior in ancient Greece who takes part in the Trojan War. One of the first stories I ever read from Tombat was This Means War, a story where Percy is in Tartarus, the Greco-Roman underworld where monsters are born and are the strongest. He's all alone and rises to become the sole warlord. Tombat has even published a single Skyrim story about one of the Dragonborn. Like I said before, Tombat's stories all deal with war in some capacity, so they really aren't for the faint of heart. There's little to no suggestive themes, and when those do pop up, they're done tastefully and maturely, without any sort of explicit messaging. Fanfiction is something that really anyone can do. You could write a story about any of your interest, your favorite sports team, your favorite movie, your favorite book, comic series, video game, anything. There's really no limits to what you can write about. I myself have even written almost 19 stories, ranging from Percy Jackson to Halo to Warhammer, even Minecraft and the Polar Express. Fanfiction.net and Archive of Our Own, also called AO3, are two of the most popular sites. I really don't recommend Wattpad for fanfiction, mostly because it's geared towards original content stories, and the fanfics on Wattpad are almost poorly written. That's really all I have, so peace, love, and may donuts come in your future. No, seriously, please subscribe. Please. I made this in a really, rushed way, so please, I'm begging you. Please.